Hi, I'm Saley, and I'm going to read from the story and its writer. And it is 7th edition, An Introduction to Short Fiction by Ann Charters. I'm reading on page 1634, an essay on Good Country People by Dorthy Mcfarland. And this will be in part 1 and part 2. On Good Country People. The penultimate story in the collection is something of a comic variation on A Good Man is Hard to Find. As the grandmother of the title story thinks of herself as a good Christian woman who believes in all the conventional platitudes, Helga Hopewell, the Ph.D. in philosophy, who is the protagonist of Good Country People, thinks of herself as a good nihilist who energetically disbelieves in all the conventional platitudes. In their titles, both stories implicitly ask the reader to consider what are good men or good people. And in both stories, O'Connor uses conventional language for comic and ironic purposes, emphasizing the meaninglessness of the platitudes in the mouths of her characters and at the same time using their words to sound the main themes of the story. For instance, Helga's mother, Miss Hopewell, characteristically strings together remarks like, everybody's different. It takes all kinds to make the world. Nothing is perfect. Nevertheless, she actually tolerates differences and imperfections very poorly. Two of the themes in the story grow out of the character's attitude toward uniqueness. Everybody is different, and imperfection. Miss Hopewell and her tenant's wife, Miss Freeman, embody contrasting ways of looking at the world that provide the frame for the story. Whereas Miss Hopewell is determined always to put a smiling face on things and never look beneath the surface, the gimlet-eyed Miss Freeman has a fondness for hidden things, the details of secret infections, hidden deformities, assaults upon children. She is obsessed with the physical demands and the ills of the body. And in her conversation about her two daughters, she dwells on the details of two major aspects of their physical being, their sexuality and their ailments. One daughter, Glennice, is being courted by several admirers, one of whom is going to a chiropractic school and who cures her of a sty by popping her neck. The other daughter, Caramay, is pregnant and unable to keep anything on her stomach. Miss Hopewell's daughter, Helga, is antagonized by her mother's platitudinous optimism, to the extent that her face has come to wear a look of constant outrage that obliterated every other expression. She finds Miss Freeman tolerable only on the ground that Miss Freeman diverts some of her mother's attention from her. Otherwise, she is uncomfortable with Miss Freeman's fascination with the secrets of the body. Helga has rejected the physical world and the life of the body in preference for the life of the mind. She didn't like dogs or cats or birds or flowers or nature or nice young men. She looked at nice young men as if she could smell their stupidity. Her rejection of the physical world stems from her awareness of its liability to imperfection. Helga's own imperfection is gross. She lost a leg when she was 10. But O'Connor obviously intended her to be a figure of all mankind, which suffers from the imperfections of the human condition. Helga insists on calling attention to her physical imperfection and refuses to try to improve her appearance. However, this defensive insistence that she be accepted like I am does not indicate that she has really accepted what she is. Rather, it suggests that she is trying to insulate herself against the pain of difference and imperfection. Helga's choice of her name reflects her response to her condition. Named Joy by her mother, she could not tolerate the incongruity between the idea of joy and her knowledge that she was dust. She therefore chose to emphasize her deformity and ugliness by assuming an ugly name, Helga, and a rude manner, and closed herself to joy for the sake of affirming the truth about herself. The persona she creates with the name Helga is a blind, stony, armored creature. To her mother, the name Helga suggests the broad, blank hull of a battleship. Helga herself is described as being square and rigid-shouldered, and as standing blank and solid and silent. Her face is characteristically expressionless, and her icy blue eyes have the look of someone who has achieved blindness by an active will and means to keep it. Though she believes the self she has created is her true self, this imagery suggests that her willful blindness prevents her from seeing the true nature of the human condition as much as does her mother's insistence on always looking at the bright side of things. Though she has rejected joy for herself, Helga has not given up on the possibility of love, and the secret desire is her one area of vulnerability. However, she thinks the persona she has created through her name is a means of making herself invulnerable, so that she can command and control love from a position of strength. She envisions her name working like the ugly, sweating Vulcan who stayed in the furnace and to whom the goddess of love had to come when called. When an apparently naive country boy appears selling Bibles, Helga feels that he offers no threat to her and allows herself to respond to his open admiration. Despite her utter inexperience, she has never been kissed, she decides to demonstrate her command of love by seducing him. She reinforces her image of herself as a woman of intellectual superiority and worldly wisdom by imagining that the simple Bible salesman, once seduced, will suffer from remorse, whereupon she will take away his shame and transform him into something useful. However, the Bible salesman's simplicity seduces her. Having climbed with her into the loft of an isolated barn, the Bible salesman gets Helga to declare, with some reservation, that she loves him. He then demands that she prove it by showing him where her wooden leg joins on. At first shocked by his proposal, Helga resists until he tells her why. Because the wooden leg is what makes you different. She feels the Bible salesman, with an instinct that came from beyond wisdom, had touched the truth about her. She comes to the conclusion that for the first time in her life she has encountered true innocence. She is so far moved by her perception of his innocence that she lets down her defenses and allows her hidden vulnerability to emerge. This is the end of the part 1.